think it's interesting. But that also leads to sort of the next conversation, and we'll end on these last two stories. And that is, how do enterprises actually, when it comes to AI, operationalize? How do they actually make all
Mhm.
of this stuff work in practice? And where does this sort of land on the spectrum? And so you brought up a really interesting article that on the surface has nothing to do with enterprise IT, in that it is WPP, which is would you call them an advertising firm or a
Yes, an
broader
ad
marketing firm?
agency. Yeah. Mhm.
They acquire a company called Infosum. I'll let you cue this up, and then I'll tell you why I think this is actually relevant. So go and cue this up.
Yeah, so WPP, which is one of the big ad agencies in the world, they do all of this, media and PR related work, and they purchased a company called Infosum, which has been a data collaboration platform, best known for being able to support collaboration on data without requiring sharing. So you can have more of a zero trust environment and still be able to have multiple parties work with data. And obviously, this seems very uh, unrelated at first glance because we're not used to thinking of ad agencies purchasing something that is such a deeply data governance and data security type of product.
But the reason, and so I think there's two things that speak to this and why this is in fact relevant, and if you're a CIO, why you should be sort of paying attention to this. The first is that it speaks to the absolute criticality of data to everything. We've talked about that repeatedly on this show about data is the lifeblood, right? That there's really, when it comes to AI and really digital transformations, we talked about, it's all part of the same spectrum. Really, there's two things that sit at the center of everything, and that's your data and your workflows, right? You got to get those two down. You need to understand how they fit together. And so these data pipelines, what is interesting here, I think the other interesting aspect is we talked a little bit earlier about this move towards AI applications. And I just so we're clear, I do not think this is mutually exclusive. I think the average enterprise is going to be deploying across this entire spectrum, building completely bespoke solutions using agentic AI frameworks and AI frameworks, and then buying AI apps. And while this ostensibly doesn't have anything directly to do with AI per se, it does, because it's the same concept, right? That I cannot. So the whole reason that they're making this acquisition is to help organizations harvest their first party data to
Mhm.
make better decisions and to drive marketing intelligence, which means it's of course leveraging both the data pipelines as well as an AI layer to take advantage of that. And what this is sort of speaking to is that the average organization, particularly when it comes to like things like ad buys, doesn't have enough visibility themselves. They have the data, but they don't necessarily have the expertise to operationalize that data. And rather than just having to try to go and say, well, we can't help you unless you build that out, they basically are coming to say, we can do it for you. We've got the data capacity, the technical capacity to actually solve this problem for you. And I think we're going to see more and more of these types of solutions across the spectrum, where organizations are bringing together, they're building out capabilities around data and AI to solve specific problems. And that will, whether that gets manifest as an AI application or something else, it's going to be part of the solution. And I think for a CIO, that means you're going to have to get very, very careful and very selective about where you make those investments. What are you buying? Where does it make sense for you to buy? Where do you invest in building, and where do you sit on that spectrum? And I think this is just a fascinating example of how that's going to play out.
Yeah, there's definitely pressure to maintain and protect the crown jewels of your first party data at this point. But there's the AI pressure to have to use other data as much as possible. So this is a smart, uh, I think, offensive move on WPP's part to recognize this is a client issue, and we're just going to go and buy that primary technology and make it a core part of our offering going forward.
And I think it's really interesting because I don't want to say it speaks to the weakness in the approach that like a Salesforce and Agentforce is taking, but I think it speaks to the water's edge of that approach. Meaning that if you go hear the Salesforce pitch, and it's not just them, right? Almost anyone that is sort of pitching this framework, the, the sort of messages, you can do anything you want, right?
Mhm.
And on the surface, that's a true statement. The challenge is that understanding the intricacies of the workloads, the data pipelines, all that's really difficult to do, and that means you're shifting. You have to take on all of that capacity internally as an enterprise IT organization or as an enterprise organization, and that doesn't necessarily make sense, right? It when you have these targeted specific use cases, it makes a lot of sense to let somebody who has expertise in those deliver them.